Welcome to the Unleashed Life, where ambitious women take control of their mindset, money, and mastery. I'm your host, Dr. Renée Baker. Let's get unleashed. Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Renée Baker, and welcome back to the Unleashed Life. Season 2 is finally here. And before we dive into everything that this season will bring, I wanted to start with something personal. You may have noticed that this new season took a little bit longer than expected. And that's because I took a little longer. Not because I lost momentum, but because life interrupted me in a way I didn't see coming. And I needed space. I needed space to process, I needed space to heal. And I needed to figure out how to share something that was never part of my plan that I that it was uncomfortable for me to share. So I didn't just disappear. I was taking care of what I could no longer ignore. So today's episode is not polished, it's not perfect. We're not talking about strategy or growth or any goals. We're going to just pause. And I want to bring you up and catch you up on the journey that brought me back here. So this episode is going to be about my journey. At first, I really wanted to keep this private. And for a while I did, to protect my peace, to focus on me and my healing, and to make sure I was going to be okay. And I didn't want to talk about it. I wanted to get on with it. I'm so good about sharing all of the great things that happen, and I've been so fortunate and so blessed that there are so many wonderful things that are happening that and have happened. But I realized that sharing the tough, messy parts of our story is just as important as sharing the good, because you can't heal what you don't reveal. And that came from Marilyn Shaw, who was on season 1, I believe episode 10. And sometimes silence can turn into a prison. So today, I've decided to break the silence and share something that is deeply personal. So last year, I was diagnosed with colon cancer. But let me back up. It started slowly. It started subtly, like it was very subtle. For years, I've had stomach issues, and I've always thought that the stomach issues was related to a gluten intolerance or stress. But towards in 2023, I started having issues, like serious stomach issues. I started to feel a little bit fatigued. I had some personal changes that were happening, and my blood pressure out of the blue started spiking for no reason. And no matter what happened, we could not figure out what was going on. I thought it was stress. And, I decided, okay, well, I've made some life changes. So I brushed it off. And like I said, I blamed stress. I told myself I was tired because maybe I was doing so much and I was doing too much. I had, like I said, the gluten intolerance. I had just left my corporate job, or was in the process of leaving my corporate job. So I thought, well, maybe this is burnout. But I will assure you that I never anticipated that it would be cancer. But before, I kept hearing the whisper, right? I always say your body whisper before it screams. And I had been ignoring it. I had postponed my colonoscopy 5 times. 5 times. 5 opportunities for me to address the colonoscopy. 5 times I thought that something else was more important or something else was more pressing. And this was 5 times over the last, like over like a 2-year period. I had business, I had work responsibilities, I was teaching, so I had students. Once I launched my company, I was clients, I had events, I had travel, I had to promote the business. And I was on the cusp of canceling the sixth appointment. So I'd scheduled the sixth appointment and I was about to cancel that. I did not feel like going through the process. So I called the scheduler and I said, this is Renée Baker, and I want to reschedule my colonoscopy. And something in her voice, like it was stern, like she said, no, you need to come in. And she said it with such firmness, and I really respect and appreciate her audacity. She says, no, you need to come in. And if you don't come in, you're going to have to find another doctor. And I wanted that doctor, but I was nervous. She said, this is important. This is now your sixth time of pushing off this appointment. And although I was within the time frame, she was very firm. So I didn't get offended. I was like, okay, okay, I'll do it. I was going to be traveling, so I just said, no, no problem. I'll do it. So I changed some things around and I decided to go to that appointment. And I will tell you that I'm so glad that I did, because that appointment, obviously, it changed everything. It was at that appointment that the doctors found a polyp and they sent that polyp to be for a biopsy. And that biopsy came back that it was colon cancer. And I will tell you that I've read about this. I had guests last season. Um, my one guest was Tia Young, who is a colon cancer survivor. I sat and listened to her story as she told me about her journey of going through colon cancer. I've heard other people go through the process of having cancer, but I will tell you, hearing someone say, you have cancer, nothing, nothing, nothing prepare it completely, it shut me down. I mean, I literally, I froze. And it was, I had received a call from the doctor and she told me that she would call, and I was grateful that she did. Actually, she had called me several times and I was unavailable. So she called my husband, and my husband called me and said, you need to call your doctor. So she told me that I had colon cancer and I froze. I listened. I couldn't even, right in this moment, I couldn't tell you what she said, but inside, everything shifted. I could not believe. No matter how much I try to articulate this, I'll never be able to articulate it. If you know, you know. But this was a surprise to me. And it was a surprise for me for a couple of reasons. The first reason is, while I had pushed off my colonoscopy, I get full body scans every year. I had stayed up on every single test except this colonoscopy. I get my blood work done. I had changed my eating habits. I was working out. And while I had all the stomach issues, I thought it was related to me changing my diet. Like I said, I had pushed off those symptoms because I thought it was just related to stress. And I had made some life changes. So I thought, okay, I'll get through it. The only thing that caught the colon cancer was the colonoscopy. And that's why these screenings matter. And you might wonder, why am I saying now? Is because here's what I've learned, and this is what this experience has taught me. Colorectal cancer is the second leading cause of cancer death in the US, and it's showing up more aggressively in people under 50. And Black Americans are 20% more likely to be diagnosed and 40% more likely to die than any other groups. So this just is no longer about me. I needed to share this is because I'm hoping to connect with someone else. I'm hoping that this message gets to someone else because I ignored all of the signs. So this message is not just about me. This message is for every high achiever, every person who feels like they're too busy with work, too busy with life, too busy holding it together for other things. I will tell you from personal experience, stop ignoring your body. Stop postponing your health. This these symptoms, they had shown up. They had shown up for years and I ignored it. And it just it's something that I can't stress enough. And I heard this news and I just needed to absorb it, right? Like I this might sound crazy, but I was having a maintenance day, right? Like, so I finished with my maintenance day. I said, okay, let me go through it. And I was very down. Like, so the people who I would typically deal with that I was really friendly with, I was very off that day. I was very distracted. My husband was at work, so I didn't want to bother him. But he was the only person that I told first. We kept it between us. I needed to deal with it. We told our kids and we told our family in the beginning. Like, not even really in the beginning, after some time I needed to process it. And not it wasn't until later that I shared it with just a couple of close friends, just people who had also gone through a cancer journey, because I needed some sense of community, but I didn't want to share it publicly. I wasn't ready. And while I was out and I was very visible and I was very active, I didn't want anybody to feel pity for me. I didn't want to be viewed or seen as sick. I didn't want people to worry. I didn't want people to be looking at me like, oh, here comes the person with cancer. I didn't need that level of pity. And for my own mental, I needed to keep going. So I showed up for the events. I showed up for my clients. I showed up for my students. I worked, I smiled, I posted. But, I was hurting. I was working through it. And I got a lot of compliments. People thought that I looked just fine, but I was sick. I was weak. And I think I will always say I was more sad than I was scared, because I was sad because I knew that there were other things that I wanted to do. And I finally started feeling like, oh, you're just getting unleashed. You're just getting started. And now I had this like ticking time bomb, because at the time when you get the diagnosis, you don't know. I had to go through staging. I had to get all these scans. I had to go all these tests to see what my treatment plan was going to be. So I was more sad than scared. But there was a fear there as well. There was a lot of fear. And another thing that came up was, I guess people would notice the change in me mostly because of my weight loss. And I will tell you, because I'd made those changes in my body and I made those changes in my life and I was working out, I changed my diet because I had all of these stomach issues. And people were saying, no, you're losing a lot of weight. Or some people even said, are you on Ozempic? Some others were like, girl, you are glowing. Life Unleash looks good on you. People would say, what's your secret? And I would smile, I would nod, but the truth was there was no secret. I was just trying to survive. I was navigating cancer. Eating had been challenging. I was exhausted. I didn't always have the energy. And it wasn't a public discussion. It wasn't something that I wanted to get into with people. But now I do. Now I decided that, I'm so loud about advocating for other people. I needed to advocate for myself, and I need to advocate for others that may be going through a journey that was similar to mine, or just going through something private that you might not want to share. But this is also a reminder to folks, because you don't always know what people are going through. People don't always look like what they're going through. So be kind with your words and maybe a little bit more gentle with your assumptions, because it did bother me, admittedly, right? Like, people thought, oh, well, you have all this weight loss and you're glowing, but I was going through this journey. So some of us, look, are just glowing because we are walking through the fire and we are just trying to get through it. And that's what I was doing. I was working my way through it. I was powering my way through it. And my mindset was the first thing that I was focused on, like just making sure that I stayed positive, that I focus on healing, that I focus on the possibilities. I'll share more along the way. I journaled throughout the process because that is a way that I keep my mind right, and that's the way that I work through things. But um, but I also had my husband, and I have to say, through it all, my husband Les was there. And if you've ever had someone there for you to love you through your darkest hour, you know exactly what I mean. This man took care of me, and he's always taken care of me, but he really took over a lot of the things that I would typically do so that I can have the energy to show up for work. He worked. He was supporting the household. He made sure that I had what I needed, physically, emotionally, spiritually. He never made me feel like a burden. He honored me throughout the process. He respected the fact that I wasn't ready to share it with folks. So he honored that. He checked in to see how I was doing. He prayed for me when I couldn't find the words or try to walk me through it. And that's that's a part of the covenant, right? That's part of in sickness and in health. And that is a large part of why I also feel that I'm here, because having someone, as much as I kept it quiet, having someone there to guide me, to help me, to lift me up. That first night after hearing that I had cancer was one of the hardest nights. I could not sleep. My mind, I would say, it's probably was that first week. I was in complete shock. And we don't, and I'll just say I was in complete shock. And I'm just so grateful that I'm married to someone who could be so thoughtful and so caring. And I'll never forget that. But I also want to talk about the price of something that we don't talk about, right? There's a cost. There was a cost in me delaying my care. And the delay of the care didn't just come with the emotional components or the emotional risk. It also came with financial costs. Fortunately, we have insurance, but the cost of late stage cancer treatment is more than $150,000. And if that cancer spreads, not only could it cost your life, but the expense of it, that number continues to climb. Now, you've contrast that with the cost of a colonoscopy. A colonoscopy out of pocket could run you roughly around $1,200 out of pocket. Depending on your insurance, it could also be preventative. But you think about the price of prevention versus the price of survival. $1,200 visit to get a colonoscopy would have saved me from physically going through that process. It would have saved the cost of insurance and just the overall price of survival. And in my case, unfortunately, I caught it fairly early. I was stage two. Initially, they thought I would need chemo and radiation. Fortunately, I had other treatment, so I did not have those types of treatment, but it still cost me. It still cost me peace. It still cost me time. It still cost me energy. I still had to recover. I had to recover. I'm self-employed, so it cost me income during my recovery. And ultimately, it could have cost me everything because I wouldn't have been here. If I would have pushed it off a sixth time, I probably would have pushed it off a seventh time and continue. And if I would have just went when I was supposed to, they probably would have been able to catch it and I wouldn't have had to go through the process. And I've given myself grace for that. I forgive me. And that's why I'm telling you, don't wait. Don't put your health to the sidelines for anything. Your calendar doesn't wait. Cancer does not care about your calendar. We invest in our business, we invest in our wardrobe, we invest in our websites and our jobs, and we'll put everything aside for everyone else. I'm asking you now to invest in you. Invest in your body. Invest in your life. It's the only one that you're going to get. So here's what I want you to know, and here's what I want you to do. If you have a family history of colon cancer, you need to schedule your tests. If you're 45 and over, you need to schedule your tests. Book your appointment, get your colonoscopy. I can promise you that the prep is not as uncomfortable as the treatment. And listen to your body. Take the symptoms seriously. Like I said, I had abdominal pain, I had personal changes, fatigue in a way that showed up that was very outside of my norm. I'm usually very high energy, and I was a little bit lower energy and caffeine. Nothing would stop that. Like I said, my blood pressure spiked because my body was fighting, and we didn't know why, especially given the life changes that I had made. Um, but take the symptoms seriously. Don't delay. Don't brush it off. Don't wait for the whisper to become a scream. Now, if this episode speaks to you, share it. If someone has been on your mind, reach out. Reach out to your strong friends. No one knew what I was going through. I didn't share it. There would be times that I would feel sick and I couldn't be at a certain place. I showed up where I could and when I could, but there were a few people who said, something's different. Let me check in on you. But you really don't know what someone is going through. But if someone is on your heart, reach out. You may not know what they're going through, but sometimes just a kind word or just a thoughtful gesture can help keep someone together. Because, like I said earlier, you don't always look like what we've been through. So, I had the surgery earlier this year, and I decided to talk about it once I realized that I was fine. Like I said earlier in the episode, I was very concerned about what the perception will be. And what I realized is that I have to share this story because I want maybe this will save someone else's life. Maybe this will help someone be more proactive than I was. Maybe this will help someone have a little bit more empathy when you notice a change in someone. And maybe it's just a moment that we stop ignoring our bodies when our bodies whisper. So that brings me to the unleashed moment. So I decided that each episode I was going to do an unleashed moment because I've had so many of those moments as I was going through my journey and my entrepreneurial journey, my health journey, my life journey. So this moment is not necessarily about the moment that I was diagnosed, but it's the moment that I decided to own the story, to talk about it, to highlight this level of vulnerability that I'm not really typically accustomed to. And I always talk about, being authentic and showing up as your best self. But I really needed to own this part of my story. This is now a part of my story. It's not my whole story. I don't have to be defined by it. But I didn't want to hide it about it. I didn't want to keep saying that I was fine when I wasn't. And also, it's changed me. This process has changed me. I think it's changed me for the better. I'm much more clearer. Maybe I'm a little softer, stronger in my faith. And also, I was already on this journey, but I'm absolutely unapologetic of my peace because sometimes life doesn't just reset you, it reveals you. And it revealed to me that I still have more work to do. And when I was saying that the best is yet to come, that wasn't just for you all. That was also a mantra for me to stay focused on what was coming versus worrying about what I was facing and what I was dealing with. And this was really hard for me to share, but I know that it was important for me to share. So you can't heal what you don't reveal. And while I am healed physically, there's no evidence of the disease. I am back. I feel wonderful. I feel really great. I'm no longer hiding. I am sharing. I am being more open. And this season of the Unleashed Life, we're going to dig deeper. We're going to truly unleash. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. I'm Dr. Renée Baker. I am unleashed as ever. And this second chance is another opportunity for me. So when I say the best is yet to come, I mean it, I own it, and I'm just getting started. Thank you for joining us on The Unleashed Life. I hope today's episode has inspired you to break free from financial constraints and societal expectations, cultivating a mindset of abundance and possibility. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform and join our vibrant online community to share your own unleashed moments and connect with like-minded individuals. Until next time, keep breaking barriers, embrace your beautiful, authentic self, and live life unleashed.